Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the session so far. Let me introduce you now to my great panelists. So maybe if you can introduce yourself very briefly before we go to the questions.
Yeah, just quickly. Lizzy Bowling, Astellas, and I've been here before on a few occasions talking about Astellas' journey for the last 5 years about S4 implementation. I will not bring it up again, but a little bit maybe. So we are implementing now multifunctional GBS as Astellas.
I'm Phil Priest. I'm a lesson in don't take a new job. Don't commit to a panel and then take a new job 2 months before you come for the panel because you're on a crazy onboarding and I have to bring notes with me to talk to you. I've been around, as you know, as those of you who've been around a lot, I've been to Shared Service Outsourcing Week almost every week for the last few years, apart from when the COVID period came in. And I'm now with Rolls-Royce as the head of GBS on a new journey.
Okay, I'm Jan. I'm coming from an Austrian oil and gas company. I'm the CIO of the company, and at the same time, I'm the head of GBS in OMV Austria.
Thank you. My name is Dorota Góral-Abram, and I'm coming from Capgemini, and I'm heading the Southern Central region for Capgemini Business Services. And I have the pleasure to be the moderator of this panel today. So, in the fast-evolving business landscape we are living today, the generative AI revolution, evolution of a GBS and transformation powered by technology and insight is a key. So, in your opinion, what is the model of the future? What needs to change? So, Lizzy, you can start.
Okay. What I'm thinking about is really as a journey. And looking at where we started from, again, bringing up S4 straight away. Anyway, so the skill set, what we needed for the last 5 years were different. So we had to focus on the process implementation, optimization. So that was the main job and objectives of the teams. Global process owners, everyone was optimized for that. So as a journey then continues, building on that, we want to then implement more and more digital technology, then we need to align our teams as well. So it's kind of an agility that we need to always look at and implement. So we are now looking at the next stage, ServiceNow implementations. So then we need to align our GBS function to that as well. And that's skill set, that's operations, that's our BPO partners, all need to bring in their own approaches and the new skill set to move on to this next phase of the journey. Different COEs, different measurements, different KPIs. I think that's kind of how I see it as a journey.
Okay, thank you. Phil?
Yeah, maybe I'll go back a little bit to some of the basic principles. So I've got 4 principles to think about, and those you've heard before. I try to share some of the things that are behind some of the reason we do things. But I've joined a company now that has a large business in defense, so supporting the defense industry. And when you start to understand that industry and what they support, the military have a term called supporters and supported. So imagine the soldier on the battlefield is supported by logistics, supported by intelligence, supported by supply of catering, and a whole pile of things go together to make sure that soldier on the battlefield is capable of fighting the fight. And if you take that concept, if you think about most of the things that the GBS organizations do, we are in the supporter category. So we have a team of people generating value, discovering products or services, developing products or services, making them or delivering them, selling your products and services, and maybe if you're in the aftermarket, supplying services afterwards and supporting with maybe parts or other things afterwards. In each case, how do we think about how the GBS supports that value stream of delivery of the corporations we work for? How do we support how we discover, develop, etc., etc.? And to do that, we have to think about something I've talked about before, the value levers. So a corporation generates value because it grows its revenue. It generates more revenue. Or you improve the operating margin of those products or services. You really drive asset efficiency in the corporation in all the guises that assets have. and actually support the expectations of the corporation so that their shareholders are more likely to invest and generate a higher share price and a higher return for the shareholders in the corporation. And then when you think about that, how do we, and Sumit talked a little bit about getting the right to operate. I've talked about it before in the trust equation. So this is where you have to have credibility. So if we want to offer a new service, how are we credible? Can we demonstrate a track record of credibility that says that we could probably do that? Then that trust also comes from delivery. Have you delivered on your promises? Have you delivered your services to a high degree of satisfaction? And do you understand the business? So if we're designing a future model, there is no cookie cutter GBS design out there. You have to truly understand the business. You have to get intimacy with the business. And if you're intimate, you're credible, and you have a track record of delivery, they will give you more, as long as it's not all about yourself. It's about the success of the corporation. It's not about the GBS. It's about the success of those who you support. And then when we think about how do we, that in practice, what do we do that has to be, that we help the design to maximize our impact from our design, that maximizes our impact on those four value levers? You know, we still have to deliver the old transactional services. They're still part of our DNA, but how do we make them touchless in the new world? How do we leverage the advantages of AI, generative AI, etc., to make them touchless? How do we really, really leverage that opportunity that's been out there for a long time of capabilities of a service, as a service? How do we generate new sources of values from the GBS skills that we have? And then how do we design services so they're delivered how they're consumed? And think about the event here. We have catering, we have logistics, we have facility management, we have lighting, etc. All of those things in your own company could be a separate service. The IT organization might look after some services. The real estate and facility people might look after some services. You might have some services like catering that sits aside and sits as another service. And even room booking, does that sit as another service? Your customers don't care. They just want to turn up to an event and it works. So we have to be orchestrators. So the final message, and I think what Roddy said earlier, we have to be an orchestration layer in many ways, not just using orchestration tools, but thinking about how we orchestrate for our services to be delivered. I think that's what we've got to think about in the GBS model of the future.
So Jan, actually it would be really interesting to understand your perspective, because you're heading two hats, actually, CIO and GBS. So does it change your perspective to the topic?
Yeah, I think OMV has a long history of shared services, also more than 20 years. And like always, you centralize more and you decentralize a little bit. So you're always pendling from left to right. I think in 2019 in OMV, we started this famous SAP journey where we all had to upgrade our SAP systems to the famous S4. Now I'm talking more like the CIO. So this big transformation, we will be done by the end of this year. In this phase, we moved more to decentral. We have 3 big businesses in our organization, and every business was implementing the SAP for their needs. So there, GBS took on a very important role in these SAP projects because they have the process know-how for finance, procurement, and the HR processes, and really played a very important role. They did a lot of testing, process design, and then, of course, the end user and key user training. This was a good opportunity for GBS in a more or less decentralized way. Now coming to the end of our SAP journey, we are basically in this S-curve that Ernst & Young, I think, just showed in their presentation. You know, you have the first curve, and now we have to hit the next one. So this is what comes after SAP S4. I think there we are now looking into new opportunities, because now after these big investments in SAP S4, how do we leverage the benefit? Now I'm switching more to my head and role as GBS. And of course, there we have the opportunity in the area of data analytics, which is super important, which is now probably the next phase. The end-to-end process view that comes now more and more prominent. We have to go beyond just the SAP systems, and of course AI, which opens new doors. So how do we leverage the combination of IT expertise plus GBS capabilities and training a lot of people in rolling out new technologies to the whole organization? I think there we are now intending to enter into this next S-curve, by really building on the basis of digitization through these big SAP projects to the next step of GBS upwards to more value-added services, and really get over this SAP phase of a lot of spend and little value added for the business.
So building on what you said, so a greater emphasis on insights, value delivery, beyond really that transactional focus on KPIs and cost takeout. Actually, I believe it's the unique momentum to elevate the value GBS can bring and can play a bigger role in the organization and drive really business outcomes. So if I may ask you actually, continue with the journey you started with S4HANA, what additional value can GBS play in the bigger ecosystem and a bigger and basically being involved in more initiatives than they are today?
I mean, obviously, with the SAP project, we have automated and integrated a lot of our processes. GBS has used this opportunity to take master data management, which is now really important for the data analytics, because now we really know and we have much cleaner master data because we need it then for automatic data analytics. And of course, we really know our processes. We have integrated a lot more in SAP. We don't need so many robotic process automation anymore. We are now looking really for the next wave, probably based on AI technologies for process automation. And of course, I think what is important for GBS, this training capabilities. It is not so much about optimizing GBS processes anymore. It is really the end-to-end view and bringing the data know-how and experience now to the rest of the organization. It is now, how can the sales teams really use their sales and customer data even more than what they do today? Because there we, of course, from the finance, procurement and HR area, we have a lot of experience now. But now we need to look outside. What can we do more with these capabilities? So it's now this effect of going beyond GBS and having an impact on the rest of the organization.
Okay. So Phil, from your perspective, how could GBS help transform the whole enterprise?
Yeah, I think it's another interesting thing to think about how we transform. But I go back again to what GBS organizations are usually very good at, whether it's processes or services. What we do is diagnose. So we find out what's wrong, we diagnose it. We have capabilities to design the future. We implement it, and then we make sure it's sustained. We have a way of mechanism to make sure it's sustained and embedded. And we do that because, largely speaking, historically, what we had in our organizations were people from a Lean Six Sigma background, people from a human change management background, and we had the disciplines and rigor of project managers and program management officers. So we did it in a very robust way. We thought about people, we thought about processes, and then we thought about the rigor of implementation. And also what we're good at now, as we've evolved, we have tools, process mining tools, task mining tools, that actually put that effort a little bit on steroids. You can really quickly diagnose and help the design. And then we have analytics and digital applications in our portfolio. So we're becoming experts. And actually, we think about how much AI we talk about in this conference. There can't be that many conferences that have this much discussion about AI, about digital, and about the way forward. And you take all those things together and you look at how you can put them into practice. And I actually have an example in my own corporation. So Rolls-Royce, just like every other engine manufacturer, manufactures engines that go onto aeroplanes that you fly around in that take cargo around. And they have to be reliable, they have to work, and they can't fail. I don't know if you know this, but the model of an engine manufacturer is to get the engine on an airframe, so a Boeing or an Airbus or the like, and that's a joint sell to the airline industry. But they don't make that much money on the sale of an engine. Where the money's made is in the service and the maintenance of the engine ongoing. So the analytics capability that sits in GBS and Rolls-Royce has been doing analysis, and basically you get paid by flying hour. So you don't get paid if the engine isn't in the air. You're paid when it's flying. So the analytics capability in the GBS organization has been analyzing all of the sensors around the engine and the engine management system, and looking at shop visits. So when an engine goes in to the maintenance shop, how do we optimize shop visits to maximize the life of the engine, to make sure it's safe 100% of the time. There's no Lean Six Sigma. There's no Six Sigma stuff in here. And with Six Sigma, airplanes would fall out of the sky. You can't be Six Sigma. You have to be much, much better. So how do we analyze all of that data, maximize the shop visit, minimize the time for the shop visit, but making sure all the right safety critical things are done for that engine, and then get it back in the air as fast as possible. And our analytics capabilities, augmented by some AI capabilities, now are giving insights to our partners who service engines to make that happen. So increase flying hours, increase safety, and increase the reliability of the engines.
Lizzy?
I think we spoke a lot about the technology itself and the setup. Probably what I would also call out is people's skills. So being in a pharmaceutical company, our clinical trial research and development is fully utilizing AI. Again, going back to the point that was mentioned previously, that the back office, we are behind, but we want to catch up. So that's kind of I wouldn't say it's a competition, but we do need to look at GBS and the skill set in GBS as well. And I saw a really good presentation this morning from Microsoft, how they're optimizing AI in their own HR processes. I really loved it. And they said that there is a reason why Copilot is called Copilot and not Autopilot. Not going back to airline, but I think it's a good example that machines cannot work alone. You will always need people, and people who can work with the technology and optimize it further. So even if AI will generate the email based on data, putting together your answer for a query, there will be still someone who needs to really look into it, whether it makes sense. And that's the point I want to make is that in GBS now we really automated the transaction processing, we automated the kind of the lower level, and now we have to train our people to deal with the new challenges, and that's the reskilling. So we don't want to lose 40% of our workforces, but I think we need to look at reskilling our people to be able to move into this next level. To have like the citizen development program. I think Takeda implemented a really good one before. So that is, again, the future challenge for us, how we can step up and how we can upskill, reskill our people to be able to meet this requirement.
Thank you. I mean, we are hearing a lot about technology and new technologies coming, S/4HANA, generative AI, very important topic on people. But if we were having a crystal ball, what actually bets needs GBS leaders to take now to be really future ready? So what is still missing, and where do we all need to invest?
Do you want me to start? Yeah. So
Let's go ahead.
Well, I think I'll talk about a past example because I think it's relevant to the future. So in a previous life, 2 jobs ago, we set about starting the GBS organization in a customer-centric way. And that was when customer centricity was sort of just beginning to enter the conferences. And what we did was we took ServiceNow and we created as an omni-channel support to use its capabilities for omni-channel support. So, supporting telephony and creation of a ticket, supporting chat, having a portal, having knowledge articles on there, having it mobile. So all of those things. But the way we thought about it in the ITIL principles was about issue management. How do we use the ticketing system to identify issues? Look at problem management. How do we solve problems and eliminate? And then how did we create knowledge? And all those knowledge articles were created manually, sometimes by experts that made them unreadable by our users, so who were using the articles, so our customers. And then we would quite often translate those knowledge articles. But before we translate, we realized we'd have to write them in plain English and then translate them and then we started to try and drive people off email completely and then to chat. Why? Because we knew chatbots were coming. So we started to try and get people onto chat as much as we could. And then the next iteration of that came along, and this is pretty recent. We started to pick up actually ServiceNow has it as an API now. They didn't have it as an API when we started to develop. We started to use the Microsoft Azure translation capabilities, hook that to an API, and be able to chat in English when you're an agent to somebody in a different language, all with caveats about this is machine translated, etc. But then we started to take it a little bit further, and we started to have our knowledge articles in English as much as we could, but we hit problems with that, with dynamic translation, because quite often you take screenshots and those screenshots have a screen that's visible maybe in English, right? And you're trying to use a knowledge article in a different language. But what's happening now with AI is really interesting. So generative AI tools can now take that Geek Speak article and convert it into plain English. No more paying an agency to write it in plain English. The capabilities for dynamic language translation are, improving infinitely almost every month, every year, to be able to use dynamic translation. And generative AI for imagery can now take that image that was in English on the screens, and it can take that text, keep the image as it is, but change the text to whatever text should be in the language of the user. And so we're not there yet, but that's the next generation that we're thinking about. So imagine in your knowledge environment, as an example, where are you going to have to support people, and how can generative AI improve your knowledge environment? And then just think about that in every other bit of service you delivered along that value stream that I talked about earlier. Where can generative AI make an impact into your organization? Be ready for it coming by changing something now that you can change, so that when it does come, you can implement it and it's reliable and safe. And no problem, you can implement it fast. That would be my guidance.
Jan, what is your perspective on that one?
In our specific case for OMV, I think we are really looking into the data analytics field, because the IT organization plus GBS are really uniquely positioned to work together. The IT is providing the data platform, and then GBS is the right central team that can build the reporting basics. Because, just IT is very technically oriented. They have seen it all, they have done it, and the users have no idea what it's all about. But nevertheless, they have to build the foundation. And then concentrating the data analytics to a certain extent also in GBS gives us the benefit that we get some homogeneous look onto our data. Because I think in OMV, I think every user has now Power BI and is using the analytics capabilities. And of course, all of a sudden you have so many different definitions of sales, including all the components of EBIT, and everybody has a different understanding. So by really using this combination of both departments, it gives us consistency in reporting and analytics and really helps us moving forward. We are also, as a company, as a second part, really in an important stage of our development, because we are an oil and gas company producing obviously a lot of CO2. So our intention is to move away from fossil fuels. So we are in the process of acquiring a lot of new companies. One of our central beliefs is that we are going from a value chain into a value circle. So we don't want to produce or extract oil for the future all the time, but use in a different way the plastic that we have. It seems today everybody brings a toy to the stage. So I have the plastic bottle. Imagine the first production of this plastic bottle. You need a lot of oil to produce it in the refinery and then have the ingredients to produce this bottle. In our vision, we take this bottle back, heat it up, put it under a lot of pressure, and put it back into our refineries and can use it again to produce another bottle of plastic. So all of a sudden, we are really in the circular economy, and we don't need new fossil fuels to produce the next plastic bottle, and these things are not floating around into the global oceans, and the production heats up the climate. So there we are buying now, as an oil and gas company, a lot of startups in the area of waste management, waste separation, waste collection. We are in touch with big change of food, and we are buying their cooking oil, because even the cooking oil you can take back and put it back into the refinery, and you get sustainable aviation fuel. So next time you get off a plane and have a desire to eat a hamburger, it might be because 2% of the kerosene is now coming out of used cooking oil. So there, OMV is buying a lot of new companies. I think this year alone, and we are middle of May, we have bought already 20 companies. And these guys have completely different business model than an oil and gas company. They are much more dynamic, they are smaller, and they have good ideas. They are using a lot of artificial intelligence to separate these plastic bottles to put it in. And I think there, again, IT and GBS are uniquely, in our case, positioned to integrate very fast these acquisitions into our processes, to put our internal controls, our consolidation processes, and have very quickly the integration done. So they are together, we are offering almost a t-shirt sized model to our businesses. They can select a small, medium, large, or very large integration, which comes with all SAP services and GBS services. As we are working together as two different departments, our prices are really competitive, and we have a very good business offering for the post-merger integration in our case.
Okay, so what I hear is really be adaptive to the changing market environment really we are in, and have the whole organization ready for that, and GBS and IT can play a critical role here. So Lizzy, what about your perspective? What are the bets GBS organizations needs to take?
Yeah, I mean, agility, I go back to that point. I think when Jan mentioned, I mentioned earlier, it will be key. It's either acquiring other companies, or in our case, acquiring some more biotechnology, small startups. That's what we are doing, and that's, we've got exactly the same challenges. But I also want to call out the user experience, and always to look on the other side and what the users expect, and always like put yourself into your users and customers' perspective. I think that is very important, because we will have all these technologies, and you probably realize as well, you've got AI in Microsoft Teams, AI in ServiceNow, AI here, AI there. So you've got like several versions, and how you will integrate all this. So I think going back to the point of like strategic outlook, either to understand the objectives of the future, the company's future as a business, but then also understand your strategy or how you will navigate into all this AI and technology, and understanding what your users or customers require from you. So looking at business cases, for example, which we mentioned several times, a standalone business case for a piece of technology probably will not work anymore. You need to then understand how it will interact with another piece of technology here and there. So I think in our case for the future, it will be also important as leaders of GBS is to present like the whole environment and how it aligns with the company strategy and with the future technologies.
Perfect, thank you so much. Question to the audience. Are there any questions to the team? Looks like no, everything was crystal clear then. Thank you so much.
Okay.